Hi, career thought leaders. Good to see you here today. And we are going to be talking about how to maximize a virtual event. So we know that virtual events are here to stay, and we and our clients still need to be networking in these events, and we still need to be taking care of our professional development instead of, in fact, maybe even more now than ever, when we're isolated and we feel like we can't do anything to manage our career or grow our business. We've got to figure out how to use these virtual avenues to do that. So let's talk about that and share. And I look forward to hearing some of your tips for how you're using virtual events or how you're helping your clients use virtual events. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to maximize a virtual event. And, before the event even happens, we have to set those goals and plan for what are we going to learn? Because if we don't, what ends up happening is that we don't have any goals set for ourselves. We don't have any, this is what I'm going to do with this information. And so it's easy to just let it go. I don't know how many of us have paid for a class or paid for something and then not used it, right? And that's not a good use of our money. And it's really not a good use of our brain power either, because there's that nagging that says, oh, you did this and you didn't do it. And sometimes it's okay, we can let it go. But other times it's like, no, we really could figure out how to use that better. So one of the things we always ask at the beginning of our Certified Personal Branding Strategist class is, what are 3 things you want out of this class? And what are you going to say no to be able to invest your time here? You already invested your money. What are you going to say no to so that you can invest your time here? And if we're working with our clients, we used to talk about this before they went to an in-person networking event, right? Why were they going? What did they want out of it? Because if they don't set those goals, it's easy to just show up and stand in the corner, and virtually it's even easier to say like, oh, I attended, but I didn't actually do anything. So set those goals ahead of time with them and for ourselves so that we can get more out of it. My board was just looking today at the information that we have for our upcoming symposium. And one of the challenges is that we have a lot of information. We have a lot of sessions, but it's not, we're not thinking that you're going to attend every one. So it's really looking at an event ahead of time and thinking which sessions are the most important for me to attend live, where I'll maybe want to engage with my colleagues or, do those types of activities that I can only do live. And then what events might I go back and listen to later, and create a schedule for those now. So if you're attending a big event, right now I'm also planning for Social Media Marketing World, which is coming up here in a few weeks. And same thing, what events do I really want to attend live? Get those on my calendar. And then what do I want to go back watch later and get those on my calendar? Now we're going to help you a little bit with our symposium, because we're going to do some watch sessions of the recorded sessions later. So this is, we'll play the session again and we'll have a live chat during that session so that you could plan to watch it later, even if you can't watch it right at that time that we're offering it live in March, so that you can have an extra opportunity, show up, engage with people on the chat, and have that extra opportunity to get to those sessions. But you can create that for yourself by simply scheduling it out. And Jen Melnick on our board, who's just a total planner, scheduler, you can really have your professional development plan for the next 6 months if you sat down and took the Career Thought Leaders Conference or whatever other event you might be looking at right now, and said, okay, I'm going to schedule this across so many months, chunking it out, piecing it out. There's actually some other benefits there, because you're more likely to put that information to work. So one of the other things that you want to do before you attend a virtual event, maybe even more so than a live event, is connect and find a buddy. So in Social Media Marketing World and in our conference, we're using some of the opportunities through Facebook groups and email and the event app, where you'll actually have an opportunity to connect with someone and say, would you want to get together afterwards and talk through this information, or share, you'll go to these sessions, I'll go to these sessions, and we'll come together and exchange ideas. There's a lot of different opportunities virtually that you don't get maybe necessarily in person, to really find someone that you could process the information with afterwards. And that's so important for our learning and our retention, to have those opportunities to process it. So comment in the groups. Most events these days have some kind of a group or an app or a Facebook event where you can get in and comment and engage with people before the event. It gives you a little bit more accountability to show up to those sessions. You could tell someone, hey, these are the sessions I'm going to go to. I'd love to see you there. And it gets you engaged right away in that process of learning. So I'd recommend doing that if you or your clients are attending live events. So the next one here is to be visible. And this is kind of like a duh, right? But in a virtual event, there's a few different ways that we can be visible. One, we can show up on video. And this is one of my favorite things about the last year that has not been so great, is that people have gotten so much more comfortable showing up in video on a call. So I've seen an increase. We used to have Career Thought Leader Associate calls on Zoom before 2020. Oh my goodness, we were doing this on Zoom, but people weren't coming with their faces. And it's made such a big difference for people to show up with their face. You really can build a better connection with people. So any event or parts of an event that give you an opportunity to show up visibly, virtually with your face, do that, because it makes a huge difference. The other way that we can show up virtually is in the chat. So use that too. Connect one-on-one with people in the chat. Say, hey, that was a great idea. Give people, that opportunity to get to know you in the chat. No matter how big the event is, most of the time you can still get into the chat and connect, respond to other people's chats, and know that it's not rude in any way to use the chat while the speaker is speaking. It's kind of like this dual lane thing that goes on. But as a speaker, I love it when people are in the chat. Then I can go and check out the chat and see what people are saying. And I know it's a much richer experience for those people on the thing, because if they're engaging with people during the presentation, they're likely learning more than if they were just sitting there listening to me. So, if you're here today, comment in the chat and tell us what else you're doing with your clients, because that does engage your brain and helps you get more when you do it that way. So if you're just getting on, we started with set goals and plan the event so that you know what sessions you're attending and you know why. What's your why for attending that event and those specific sessions that you might have picked out? And then connect with a buddy, find someone else that you can engage with throughout the event. And then here during the event, really being visible and figuring out how you can engage in a way that helps you connect throughout the event and gain that visibility. Because of course, if you're attending these types of events, even a professional development event, it's always a good place for your network and your brand visibility. So do that as much as you can. Then our fourth one here is engage your learning style. So I'll never forget sitting in a presentation by Elizabeth Harney Sanders Park, who many of you know, and she was teaching learning styles. And most of the time people talk about auditory and kinesthetic and visual. And she talked about a learning style that was integrative, or kind of, I consider it to be somewhat destructive. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. And that's why a lot of teachers have always hated me, because my learning style is taking whatever is said and remaking it in my head. Doesn't mean it's better than what the person is, teaching. But I think sometimes when I was young, especially, my process kind of came across that way. But this was me, right? I'm going to take it and make it into something new and different, rearrange the parts. And that's how I learn. And so I know now that when I'm on a session, the best thing for me to do is to set a goal of how I'm going to integrate that into my process, or, set some time aside afterwards of how I'm going to implement that, because that's how I learn and how I like to rearrange the pieces, and that's how I integrate it. So know how you learn and set aside your time, space, whatever it is, to make sure you can engage that way. So if you learn visually, I think maybe Elizabeth learns visually because she was drawing things the whole time we were doing Career Jam. If you're a kinesthetic, are you going to listen to the sessions again later while you're on your walk or whatever that auditory is. And then as kinesthetic, that might be while you're walking, or how else could you engage that part of yourself, writing notes. I'm always writing notes too, that can help you engage your learning style. First, you got to know what it is, and then figuring out how you might engage that. And Martin is saying, yeah, it excites me when people chat when I present. Yes, and I feel like there might be some hesitation to do that because people think it's rude. And there might be presenters that think that, but I think for the most part, presenters are, yes, please engage in the chat because that keeps you on topic and interested. Yes, and so many different learning styles for introverts and extroverts. I actually think that virtual events are kind of an introvert's haven because you can shut off when you need to, although be a little bit careful with that. But then you can kind of engage in that way that introverts maybe are more like to engage in writing and one-on-one. I use the private chat a lot, always being careful to know that that's not private. Whoever the organizer is can see those private chats at the end when the chat is downloaded. But I use the private chat to connect that kind of more intimate connection. So I was just on a call the other day that was a bigger group. I think it might have been a career services for universities type of event. And Crystal MacArthur was on there. And so I got in the private chat and I wrote to Crystal saying, oh, it's so great to see you. So there's some of that intimacy that we can create virtually that I love as an introvert. And yes, having an activity to let the participants break away, definitely as a speaker or planner, making sure that there are those engagement pods throughout the sessions. We've been doing that more and more as people have gotten more virtual. I said earlier, we were doing the Zoom calls for the Career Thought Leaders Associates, and no one was coming on with their face. And so then 2020 hit and people showed up with their face. And then like 2 meetings later, there was so much conversation that we couldn't have an all group meeting. We had to break out into pods. And that was awesome because people are ready to engage. And if you're running an event or you're speaking, planning to have some kind of small group engagement during your program is really important. I agree, Kathleen. Yeah. We use Zoom so that we can break people out into rooms. You just have to have content that is facilitated or a process that is set up. We've done pairs, we've done small groups. They're doing some pairs work in the Certified Personal Brand Strategist this session, which has been fun. I've been in some really amazing things. Zoom has a lot of tools for you to do it well, which I love. And yeah, love that. Pre-work, yes. So you're going to be getting that for the symposium. If you signed up for the symposium, we're going to have some pre-work for you to do so that you can really plan and think about what you want to learn. And I would encourage that if you're doing an event, same thing, have some kind of pre-work. And it may be more tactile, answer these questions to get ready for your resume, or it might be more conceptual. Like I said, for our personal branding class, it's what 3 things do you want to learn and what are you going to say no to have the time and energy to do this. So somewhere along that range of pre-work can be really helpful. I feel like I got away from my 5 things. Okay, so we're talking about engaging your learning style and knowing how you learn and setting yourself up for success there. And then afterwards, this is why I've always been so passionate about creating Career Thought Leaders events that give you something tangible that you can use. 1, because of course it helps your practice or your business. But 2, I really want you to put into practice the things that you learn so that you get the value, but also you feed your brain, you feed your thirst for knowledge. And that's one of the things I love about this group. I think one of our, brand definers for our target audience is thirsty. People that join our group are thirsty for knowledge. And you really don't get the benefit of that if you don't integrate it, if you don't have that opportunity to really learn it. And so it may not be teaching it. It may be, using it in your coaching practice or whatever it might be. But figure out afterwards, plan some time even before the thing starts to when am I going to block out time afterwards to integrate this, to figure out how I want to use this information. And if you've connected with a buddy up front, this may be your buddy time too, to teach things to each other, kind of go through the materials together, because this is the best way that we learn. I was in my coaching program or my counseling program, actually, my master's in counseling program. And one of the things that was one of our early assignments was to teach cognitive behavioral concepts to someone. And I don't think I would remember those concepts as well if I hadn't taught them to someone else. And then, of course, I've found opportunities to teach a lot of those concepts to my husband. I was teaching him, the okay child and not okay child behavioral interventions. And it always helps us learn if we can take that material and use it somewhere else. So if you are attending an event, or your clients are attending events, especially learning events, how can they set aside that time before the event to really think about how they'll integrate it and what they want to do with it? That helps you be engaged when you attend, because you have an idea, at least a little spark of an idea of, hey, I want to do this with this. And then at the end, when you roll it back together and you implement it, your learning is deepened so much more because you're doing that. So I was just thinking about, video victory with Nicolette Barrett is one of our topics for the symposium. And there's so much in video right now. There's so much going on that I know I'll learn things from her session that I can implement even in these live sessions, just to be more effective. And I'm really looking forward to that. But it does mean that I've got to schedule some time in early April to really think about, what did I learn from her, and how can I implement some of those things to be more effective in what I do. So those were my 6 tips. We went through: set the goals and plan, connect and find a buddy, use those Facebook groups that most events are putting together, be visible, so comment, show your beautiful faces, and then engage your learning style. Really know how you learn, set aside the time and space that you need to learn the way you do, and then afterwards teach it. That goes with my learning style, but it also is just something that we know the brain likes. So a few things I wanted to show you. One is, and I'm not going to show this to you, but I'll put this link in the chat. So this is a fun video from Susan Britton on the neuroscience of making your hands visible in a video. And she goes through some options and some ways that you might do it. And you got to find a way that works for you. But there's actual neuroscience that says, like, when I show my hands in my video, it makes it more accessible. It makes me more personable, because we're used to seeing people's hands, and there's kind of that welcoming, right? Whether you shake hands or people say hi, using hand gestures. So I thought that was really fun. And then also, of course, the symposium registration, and that starts on March 16th with the sessions. We're actually going to do some things on March 15th to orient you and a plan of what you're going to get out of the sessions, but with the events start on the 16th. So I know a lot of you have registered, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And we'll be back here next week with another topic on our live stream. If you have ideas for topics or questions, please let me know, and love to have your topics addressed here on the live sessions.